Hey guys, today's video is brought to you by Equipment Experts. Look, if you're tired of searching multiple websites for used equipment and trucks, check out equipmentexperts.com. What's going on, guys? Wayne here. For the last few years, one machine has really dominated all other types of construction equipment when it comes to the title of hottest selling machine, and that is the compact track loader. And really no other machine particularly comes close to it. Now, all of this kind of took hold about 5 years ago when the CTL dethroned the skid steer as the top selling machine, and did so despite a price premium over skid steers somewhere in the ballpark of $15,000 to $20,000. But that's because contractors, landscapers, farmers, tree removal companies, they've all found that for the extra cash that a CTL demands, in many cases, they're gonna gain a great deal of versatility, power, comfort, less ground disturbance, etc., over the OG compact loader. Here's the thing though, the CTL's popularity and the speed at which manufacturers are advancing the versatility, the power, the size of these machines, all of that was bound to trickle down to a smaller, less expensive machine at some point. And now, all of a sudden, we've got a segment of machines that are basically mini CTLs. And though this is not a new machine type, the subject of our video today, that segment is getting quite a lot of attention these days. Now, the machine we're talking about, of course, is the compact utility loader, or as it's more commonly known, the mini skid steer. Now, going back in time a little bit, Toro claims that the Australian-made Dingo was the first mini skid steer to hit the US market back in 1995. And not long after that, the company acquired the Dingo brand rights in the US, and in 2000 introduced the first tracked model, the TX420. Now, for 20 years, the segment grew pretty gradually, but thanks to tracked models like the TX420 and their compact size, their lower price point, and recent power increases that have made compact utility loaders, mini skid steers, made these machines rival even full-size CTLs when it comes to lifting power, sales of mini skid steers have more than doubled since 2015. Now, for quite some time, Toro, Ditch Witch, Bobcat, and Vermeer have really been the major players in this market. And despite the fact that this machine type still makes up only a small fraction of compact sales here in the US, the huge increase in popularity and the massive increases in capability meant that it was only a matter of time before another major CTL maker, not named Bobcat, took notice and threw its hat in the mini skid steer ring. And all of that brings us to the real subject of today's video, Kubota, which recently introduced its first ever mini skid steer, or stand-on track loader, as they're calling it, the SCL1000, which is currently slated for release later this year. Now, Kubota is regularly in the top 3 of all CTL makers when it comes to tracking machine sales, and specifically the company's SVL75 is often at or near the top of the top-selling CTL models, according to our sister company EDA, which tracks equipment sales and financing data. And I say all of that to make this point. Kubota's entry is a very big deal for this market. It adds further legitimacy to this machine type, not just because they're a huge player, but because you know that this move comes in response to customer demand that Kubota was seeing for this machine. Okay, so that's probably enough of a history lesson. Let's talk about the SCL1000. Let's talk about why Kubota waited until now to introduce it. And let's talk about what sets it apart from the rest of this increasingly crowded segment of machines. Because as it turns out, Kubota has been really smart in figuring out not just how to enter this market, but how to enter this market with a meaningfully different machine. Let's get into it. Okay, so as the name suggests, the SCL1000 has 1,000 pounds of rated operating capacity. Now, today's mini skid steer market has machines with capacities ranging from 500 pounds on the small end all the way up to 3,000 pounds, which is offered by Ditch Witch's SK3000, which, by the way, we covered in another video that we put out near the end of last year, and you can check that out in the link in the description below. But back to Kubota. Why did Kubota go with 1,000 pounds of capacity for their first machine? Now, according to Kubota's construction equipment product operations manager, Tim Bolds, it has a lot to do with how the company sees this segment and what its customers told them that they needed out of a Kubota mini skid steer.
But one of the things that we do in our research and development process is we communicate with our dealers and customers a lot We talk to them constantly. We survey them. We ask them what they need to be more productive, more efficient. You know, we heard a lot of things of, I wish my machine could pick up a little bit more weight, do a little bit more, be able to get into some different areas, and still be able to get into backyards.
Okay, so as Tim is saying there, the big thing that Kubota heard from its customers, and kind of keep in mind that a lot of the development, a lot of the discussion around this machine, Kubota really kind of centered on what its specific customers needed from a Kubota mini skid steer. While those customers told them that they needed more power and capability than the smallest mini skid steers on the market, they also said that they didn't want a machine so large that it would prevent them from squeezing into smaller spaces or through fences. On the other hand, as was demonstrated by last year's introduction of the Ditch Witch SK3000, this market is very clearly moving toward higher and higher operating capacities and larger machines. And that was something that Kubota couldn't ignore with this entry because they feel like it's just going to keep on getting bigger and more powerful. So they settled on a 1,000 pound ROC for their entry machine, along with a very narrow 36-inch width as kind of a Goldilocks solution. That's going to be plenty power for most of their customers while still being small enough to maneuver into tight spots. And as we're going to discuss here in just a little bit, this machine's footprint is going to be a very big selling point for Kubota. All right, so as a quick aside here, with these core capabilities of this machine in mind, the 1,000 pounds of rated operating capacity, the 36-inch width, the SCL1000 is going to launch with 5 available attachments: pallet forks, an auger, a high-capacity bucket, a compact skid rake, and a trencher. Now, all of these attachments are going to be produced by Land Pride, which Kubota acquired as part of its acquisition of Great Plains Manufacturing back in 2016. In fact, Land Pride's Salina, Kansas plant is going to be handling manufacturing of the SCL1000 itself, and Kubota also recently announced that the SVL65 CTL will also be manufactured at this facility, and all of this is in response to growing demand for Kubota construction equipment. A really kind of interesting thing to keep in mind here as we go into the development of this machine. All right, so back to the SCL1000. And I kind of want to take a moment here to provide a little bit of market context and comparison when it comes to the size of the machine that Kubota settled on here. And I want to start with the Ditch Witch SK3000, the machine that we were talking about earlier. Now, this machine is 20 inches wider than Kubota's SCL1000. And look, it's supposed to be. Its whole kind of focus was power and size, and introducing a machine with the ultimate capability that a mini skid steer has been able to achieve at this point. And with 3 times the rated operating capacity, it only makes sense that this machine is big and much bigger than Kubota's entry. It's kind of an unfair comparison because they're really meant for 2 different things, but it just kind of gives you an idea of where Kubota is kind of placing this machine in the context of the market. The Ditch Witch SK1050, on the other hand, is not only more representative of the mini skid steer market as a whole, it's in line with the Kubota model's lifting capability, and this machine is only 6 inches wider. Now, I say only 6 inches, but we all know that that 6 inches of width when it comes to the mini skid steer can actually make or break the machine in the eyes of a lot of customers when it comes to usability, when it comes to versatility, because that 6 inches could be the difference of you being able to get into a space or not. Now, Ditch Witch's parent company, Toro, also offers a dingo model that directly competes with the Kubota SCL1000, and that is the Dingo TX1000. The standard version of this machine has a width that is 5 inches wider than the SCL1000, though Toro does offer a narrow track version of this machine that will get you down to a width of only 33.7 inches, and that's just about 2 inches narrower than the SCL1000. Okay, so my whole point here is that you've got big mini skid steers and you've got little mini skid steers, and Kubota's really kind of nestled this model right in the middle of the market. However, that brings us to what might be the most impressive detail about the SCL1000, and that's its low ground pressure. While other brands have addressed customers that need more maneuverability and a narrower machine by offering things as complicated as hydraulically adjustable undercarriages, and more typically, simply offering narrower tracks like the Dingo we were talking about, and those are usually around 7 inches in width. Kubota was actually able to maintain this narrow 36-inch footprint on the SCL1000 with standard 9.8-inch tracks that on competing brands would qualify as a wide track option. And equipping this machine with wide tracks and really making that a big focus of the design, and not only that, but executing on that and achieving that goal has given Kubota's engineers a really big win here. Very low ground pressure of 4 psi while maintaining an extremely narrow machine. All right, but let's look again at the SCL1000's competition, and let's look at a very direct and a very established competitor in the Toro Dingo TX1000. Now, while that machine's narrow track solution gives you a little bit more maneuverability at 34 inches of width, which is about 2 inches more narrow than the SCL1000, you also gain a good bit of ground pressure due to the 6-inch wide track that model employs. In fact, that narrow track TX1000's 5.4 psi of ground pressure nearly matches the 5.8 psi that you find on the much larger Ditch Witch SK3000. And if you're wondering how Bobcat compares, all 3 of that company's MT series mini track loaders, which range between 550 to 1,000 pounds of rated operating capacity, those machines all offer an impressive 35.6 inches of width. However, the direct competitor to Kubota's SCL1000, the Bobcat MT100, has a ground pressure of 5.25 psi. And what this all means is that with the design of the SCL1000, Kubota was able to do something that no other mini skid steer maker has done to this point, and that is marry a very capable 1,000 pounds of operating capacity with a very narrow machine footprint that also does the least amount of damage to the ground beneath it. In the 1,000 pound ROC subset of these machines, some machines are slightly narrower, but no one comes close to the low 4.0 psi ground pressure that the SCL1000 achieves unless you want an overall width that's up to a ½ foot wider.
Customer types that really use this machine a lot are landscape, professionals, the contractors. There are rental yards that own them and rent them to homeowners, the do-it-yourselfers over the weekend. And then there are actually, tree service people as well that like to utilize these machines, especially if they have to go into someone's backyard and maintain trees, cut some limbs out, and take that material out of the backyard. We had to start with the design idea that this is what we want to be able to do. We want to be able to get in through most standard backyard gates. Some are larger than that, but a lot of them are, a 36-inch door that has about a 38-inch gap between the posts. So we're able to sneak in there with this machine and be able to get into those backyards and either transport material back and forth. Even people that do it would be land, hardscapes. If they're putting in like a patio in the back, they can go in there, do the ground prep work with this thing, and then they can go back and forth and carry the blocks to lay, or the bricks to lay.
Now, the other key elements to how Kubota sought to differentiate the SCL1000 from the rest of a very established market were really all developed out of the company's experience and design expertise that it has gained from building very popular CTLs over the years. And that right there, I think, is a really important point. We talked earlier about how Kubota is entering this market as a bit of a late entrant, so it's got some ground to make up, right? Tim says utilizing the company's expertise on CTLs is the exact type of advantage that can do just that.
It gives us a good advantage because we're utilizing existing designs and proven durability designs in this machine.
All right, so the most basic of these CTL-inspired design choices is the engine design. Powering the SCL1000 is an in-house Kubota diesel that's rated at 24.8 horsepower. And Tim says what sets this engine apart from the competition, which is especially important here, since Kubota is actually a supplier of engines rated at this specific power point for competing mini skid steers, is that it's a turbocharged design prepared specifically for the SCL1000.
Other manufacturers have under 25 horsepower like us, but no one has a turbo on their diesel engine. So ours is a turbocharged D902 Kubota engine that's in there. It is a new engine for Kubota. The 902 is not a new engine, but the turbo on there makes it kind of new. But we're known for our compact diesel engines throughout the world.
The next CTL-inspired design aspect of this machine is its vertical lift pattern, which gives it an impressive hinge pin height when you look at the rest of the market.
Our vertical lift loader, if you look at our skid steers and our track loaders, we basically scaled that down to make this little machine. So our vertical lift gives us a 84.7 inch hinge pin height, which is one of the highest out there for this size machine.
In fact, that 84.7 inches of hinge pin height is the best you'll find among mini skid steers with 1,000 pounds of rated operating capacity. And among all mini skid steers, the SCL1000's hinge pin height only falls behind two larger models, the Vermeer CTX160, another vertical lift machine, which has a height of 88.7 inches, and the 118 inches found on the Ditch Witch SK3000, which is, as we said, the largest mini skid steer on the market.
Customers wanted to dump in a roll-off dumpster, and this allows them to get the height, and with that vertical loader, it gives them the reach to be able to do that.
Now, of course, when you've got a machine that not only needs to be gentle on the ground beneath it, but also is one that the operator stands on while operating, the undercarriage design on this machine is of the utmost importance, and it's another area where Kubota is employing its experience with full-size track loaders. The SCL1000's undercarriage is a purpose-built design that is welded to the main chassis rather than being a bolt-on design.
If you're standing beside the machine and look at it, and then look at our full-size compact track loaders, the SVL series that we have, we took that design and basically shrunk it down. So we're taking a proven, durable, heavy-duty undercarriage that we don't have to worry about bolts loosening up or anything like that. It's welded to the frame.
Tim also says that the track tension system found on the SCL1000 is also the same greased, no tool required system that you'll find on the company's full-size CTLs. Another big design aspect of this undercarriage is the dual flange design on the front rollers.
That's doing a couple things for you. Whenever you go to pick up a load with it, with pallet forks, which is one of the popular attachments for these machines, when you pick up that heavy load in the front, some of the machine's weight is transferred to the front, and then you're picking up the weight as well on the front. So all that weight is coming down kind of on those front rollers. And instead of having a single flange roller right in the middle of the track, we have a dual flange which spreads that weight out over the track. It helps extend the life of the track because you're not putting all the pressure right in the middle of it. And it gives you a little bit better stability because you've got a little bit wider footprint as you're driving around on.
Now, as that dual flange front roller attests, keeping maintenance costs down was a major design goal for the engineers on this undercarriage. And to that end, the undercarriage's sealed track rollers are greased and sealed, and the track frame over those rollers is angled to shed debris. That angled design not only keeps debris out of the undercarriage, but it also helps in preventing detracking. But what about the single flange rear roller on this undercarriage? What's behind that design?
The reason we put a single flange roller in the back is if you think about moving around the job site and being able to turn and twist and move, it's very nimble on that single point, and you're not placing a ton of weight on that single point anyway whenever you're turning.
Now, obviously, this machine doesn't have a cab. That's kind of the point. So there's not much to talk about when it comes to operator comfort, or at least as much as we would with a CTL. But wrapping up the undercarriage is actually a really good opportunity to address operator features, because beyond what the undercarriage provides in terms of stability and operator comfort, Kubota has done a few other things to ensure that the experience of operating the SCL1000 is a good one. Specifically, there are cushioned loader boom cylinders on this machine, as well as an adjustable platform suspension system for more comfort and stability while you're aboard the machine. It also features a 12-volt charging port and a 4.3-inch color dash monitor. Now, one other feature worth mentioning here that was actually put in response to customer request was keyless start with passcode protection. Now, Kubota says customers voiced this request with the hopes of cutting down on potential theft of the machine, which has been a problem with this machine type. Now, the final area of commonality that the SCL1000 has with Kubota's CTLs is controls. Kubota has implemented pilot-operated ISO pattern controls on this machine with a bit of a twist. Literally. Now, the right-hand joystick on the machine controls the loader functions, while the left-hand stick controls the machine's movement. Exactly what you would expect from an ISO pattern control scheme. However, that left stick is where things get different. It's not the same joystick that you're going to find in a Kubota or other brand of CTL. It's a T-handle joystick that moves the machine forward or reverse when you push up or down, pretty normal. But to actually turn the machine, you have to twist that T-handle while pushing it forward or reverse.
So it operates slightly different, but a lot of people that get off of, you know, the competition's piece of equipment, or if they've got one of our track loaders or skid steers that is ISO style of control, it doesn't take very long for them to pick it up. It's kind of natural.
Now, we went over a big part of the maintenance story on the SCL1000 a little bit earlier when we were detailing the machine's undercarriage, but being a new machine design for Kubota, and more importantly, one that crams a lot of different componentry into a very small space, Tim tells me that Kubota engineers really did their due diligence in making sure that when you open the front hood of this machine, you're going to have access to about 95% of what you'll need to perform regular maintenance on.
There's a lot of hoses, a lot of, you got your engine in there, hydraulic parts and everything. So what we did in the design of this thing was, when you raise the hood in the front, we've basically got your hydraulic oil filter, your fuel filter, with the water separator bowl, all in your air filter is all under the hood, all up and easy to access from standing outside the machine.
Tim says the only major service point that can't be accessed from that front hood is the engine filter, which has its own access point under a plate on the right-hand side of the machine, and that engine filter change interval is every 500 hours. All right, guys, so that's gonna wrap it up here on our discussion of the Kubota SCL1000 mini skid steer. Now, look, in terms of availability, Tim says that this machine should launch to dealers in the fall of 2020. And this is a really interesting and potentially impressive market entry for Kubota, and one that they clearly did a great job of thinking through. But we want to know what you guys think. Now, I've got some specific questions for you guys that I would love to hear some feedback on in the comments. First up, what do you guys think of the mini skid steer machine type in general? It seems to be a pretty kind of hot topic within the heavy equipment industry. Lots of buzz around this machine type at ConExpo and the SCL1000 specifically. Speaking of that machine, how do you think Kubota's machine stacks up to the competition of this market? Do you think they chose the right size of machine for this first entry? And what would you like to see on future Kubota mini skid steers? Let us know your thoughts, your responses to all of those questions and more in the comments below. And if you like this video and found the information in it useful in any kind of way in your next machine purchase or rental, do us a favor and hit that like button below. It really does help our channel out. And if you want more videos and news coverage of the construction industry and heavy equipment, head to our website at equipmentworld.com and subscribe to our newsletter. And be sure to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and hit that bell, turn on notifications, so you're getting up to the minute alerts whenever we drop a new video. Thank you guys so much for watching. We always appreciate your time, and we will see you next time.